So we've just looked at a high-level overview of Panorama's digital consent process in the previous module. Now it's time to explore this functionality further. And the first process we'll consider is adding new bank accounts and billers to Panorama Investments accounts. Throughout this and the following modules, we'll reference the step-by-step digital consent workflow we introduced in the first module. For more detail on the broader management and oversight of accounts and billers, you may wish to re-watch the relevant module in the Transactions and Investments course. To recap, as we'll be covering the content only in the context of digital consent within this course. Referring to our digital consent process map, the first step is preparing the new account or biller for your client to approve. Within your client's Panorama Investments account, you'll navigate to Payments and Deposits, and then Accounts and Billers. And here, let's choose to add a new linked account. Enter the details and select Continue. We'll bypass step 2 in the process, as it only applies to investment orders and transaction-related consents. And we'll move to step 3, which is setting up the consent request details. And here, if the account has multiple parties to it, such as a joint account, SMSF, or trust, for example, you'll be able to select exactly who you're seeking consent from. You can select any number of approvers, but there should be at least one. Note that if you select multiple approvers, they must all consent to the request for it to be approved. If one approver declines, then the consent will be declined overall, even if the other clients to the account provide their approval. Then you'll select how your clients will be notified that they have received a consent request from you that requires their attention and approval. Notification can either be by SMS, email, or both. You'll select an appropriate expiry date for the request, which will be at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern or Sydney time on your chosen date. Note the system will default to an expiry date of the very next day, and a tip here is to make sure you choose an expiry date that gives your client sufficient time to receive and then respond to the request. Note that 3 months is the maximum time you can provide for a consent request expiry. If the expiry is more than 1 day into the future, you have the tick box option to send an automated reminder to your client if no response has been received and there are less than 24 hours remaining for consent to be received. This is a handy automated feature that can provide your client with a well-timed prompt to ensure that the consent is obtained within the required timeframe. There's also a tick box option for you, the advisor, to receive an email when a client response has been received or if the consent has expired. Alternatively, you can monitor the consent yourself with the help of your consent management tracking page, and we'll consider this in a moment. Note that once all required approvals have been received, the linked account or biller will be active. To proceed, select Continue, where you can have a final review of details for the new bank account or biller and how you'll send that request to clients. You'll be able to make changes as required. When all is in order, select Send Now to send the request to your client or clients by the selected method. You'll see a green text box here confirming the consent request has been sent. You can click here to view tracking of the consent, and as I've mentioned, we'll come back to that. So now we move to step 4 in the process, and this is about your client's experience. Shortly after you clicked Send Now, your clients will receive the email and/or SMS alerting them to the consent request. The message will instruct them to sign into Panorama, following the prompts to Messages. Your client will review and respond to the request prior to the due date that will be visible for them. We're going to unpack your client's experience in detail in the upcoming module titled What Does My Client See? to understand exactly what they see and how and where they can respond. Back to our step-by-step digital consent process map, and step 5 is how advisors and support staff will track and manage all their requests with clients. You'll have full oversight to keep you right on top of the status of all pending and completed client consents by navigating to tracking and then consent management. Pending requests will show the due date, account details, the consent type, who it was requested by, and the date it was requested. For new accounts and billers, you'll see the consent type as either linked account, pay anyone account, or BPay biller. We'll consider the tracking of other investment-related consent types in a later module. The Actions menu to the right allows you to quickly send a reminder to required approvers who've not yet responded, and also to stop the request should you no longer need to proceed with it. You can expand out each pending request to provide the full detail of the request, which of the approvers are still to respond to the consent request, and another opportunity here to send a reminder or stop the request. Completed consent requests list all those that have been finalised, and for these you'll see the completion date, account details, the consent type, the original request date, and the status. In relation to new accounts and billers, you'll see the status as either consented, declined, expired, or stopped. Here, you can again expand out each completed consent request for full details, including who provided the consent and on what date. The final step in the process is the daily upload of digital consent records and supporting documents to Xplan. This is widely used financial planning software, and if you or your advice business is an Xplan user, please refer to the later module in this course which fully considers this component feature of our digital consent process. And for all the assistance you need, again, your Panorama support team is there for you. Or you can go directly to the Panorama Help and Support pages, where you'll find step-by-step guidance with screenshots outlining the processes. So that ends this module, in which we've explored how you can obtain digital consent from your clients for the addition of new accounts and billers for their Panorama Investments accounts. The next module in this course turns to the request for digital consent from clients for investment orders, which includes the option to create and attach a record of advice and supporting documentation as part of the process. Thanks, and we look forward to seeing you again.